Today we are going to get 5 valuable nutritional tips from this man, Sir Chris Hoy, who not only was a very successful track cyclist with 6 gold medals to his name at the Olympics and 11 World Championship titles, but also before that got himself a degree in sports science, so he certainly knows what he's talking about, unlike some. So without further ado, shall we get on with tip number 1?
Tip number 1, I would say, is the timing, the importance of timing of when you eat and when you replace what you've used up. So you have this window of opportunity at the end of a training session, the end of a ride, that your body's like a sponge and it soaks up nutrients really effectively. So if you can have your food, your supplements, whatever you're having to replace the energy, ready to go as soon as you can, straight afterwards, it makes a massive difference to the speed with which you can recover from the session.
Okay, first one, timing. Number 2?
Number 2 would be the importance of protein. I think protein was a dirty word in endurance sport for a long time. You know, I think people thought if they looked at a protein bar, they were going to suddenly grow massive biceps, and that it was only the domain of strength or power athletes. But protein is the biggest shift, I think, in nutrition in sport in the last 10 years. All endurance athletes now, serious ones, will be looking to supplement their protein, to have some form of protein as part of their recovery. And that doesn't mean to say they're suddenly going to grow huge muscles. What it will ensure is that you can maintain lean muscle mass and also help that repair process, because basically we damage our muscles on a very micro level when we're exercising hard, and you want the amino acids to be there as building blocks to help repair the muscle fibers at the end of each session, and you need protein for that. Carbohydrate's great, it's there as a fuel source, as an energy source, but you don't need it as part of the repair process. So protein is essential, whether you're doing endurance or sprint disciplines, it's key.
All right, number 3.
Number 3, I would say a classic mistake that a lot of people make, beginners make, is to not train as you race. Make sure that you don't just try something new, nutrition-wise, on the day of a big event. A lot of people, on the day think, right, I'm going to buy myself some special gels or a protein bar or try something new because I've heard that you should eat 10 plates of pasta the night before an event. Always try out your nutrition, in training before you get to your competition, and you're not going to have some horrendous intestinal response to
Did you ever make that mistake in your early days?
Well, sodium bicarbonate is something that a lot of the kilo riders used to use, which helps neutralise lactic acid for a short period of time. So you would take these, a scoop of bicarbonate of soda and drink it, and that would, you'd measure it out to be the right amount. And we'd been told this was, an effective way of buffering lactic acid. And I waited to race day to try it, and I got the measurements wrong, and I was sick everywhere, and it was horrendous. So no matter what it is you're doing, no matter what supplement it is you're using, whether it's just timing of your food or what you're eating the night before, don't try something new the night before or on race day.
Okay, number 4, please, Chris.
Number 4, it's an obvious one, and one we always talk about, but it can never be overemphasized, and that's the importance of hydration. Water, we're 90% water as humans, and we need to have water for almost every single biological reaction that's going on within our bodies. Water is crucial. If you get dehydrated, it can have catastrophic consequences, but on a lesser degree, it can just impair the processes that are happening within our bodies. So we have to stay hydrated, even just down to things like concentration, alertness. It can be compromised by how hydrated or how dehydrated we are. So staying hydrated, making sure you have small amounts of water, ideally with electrolyte in it, because pure water isn't the best way of hydrating, and just making sure you never get to the point where you really are thirsty. That's always a bad sign.
Well, we're down to our final point, number 5.
Point number 5 would be to be organised, to plan ahead, to make sure you have enough of the right foods in the fridge at home, in the cupboards, with you if you're in the track centre or at the gym. The worst thing is when you go to the fridge and you realise you're out of whatever it is you were planning to eat for your meal. You then tend to eat whatever's in the house. Inevitably, it tends to be junk food or stuff that's not quite so good for us. And it's just about being organised, thinking ahead and being disciplined.
How were you when you went to the supermarket hungry?
Yeah, that's another golden rule. Never go to the supermarket hungry, because you end up buying all kinds of rubbish. That's why my wife was much better than me at shopping, and she would always, she was fantastic, still is fantastic at preparing meals, and she's a great cook, but particularly when I was training, and to have, going back to one of the earlier points about timing, to have your food waiting for you when you come in as well. If she happened to be home and could have the evening meal ready to go after I'd had my recovery shake and I'd come back from the track, eating straight away, not waiting for an hour to cook it myself, but I was very lucky to have a very understanding wife, and that certainly helped me to win all those medals.
Well, there you go, 5 nutritional strategy points from Chris Hoy. Before we finish with you, Chris, I've got one question of my own. You had a very long career. As we said at the start, you also had a degree in sports science before you began your career. What were the main things that changed from a nutritional point of view through that very long double-decade period of time?
I think the biggest change that I saw was the emergence of protein for endurance athletes. Protein was always seen as the sprinter's domain. You know, team pursuiters, road guys I would talk to would never use protein as part of their recovery, but now it's just integral to their nutritional plan. So yeah, that's the biggest thing. And you know, the fear that if you eat a protein bar or have too many tins of tuna, you're going to suddenly look huge. You know, clearly that's not the case. So protein in the right way is absolutely essential for all athletes, not just sprinters.
Yeah, very interesting, and it will be very interesting to see how things progress over the next 20 years as well. Thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure,
Chris.
thank you.
We've got a couple more videos for you to watch right now. First up, just down here, is how to improve your recovery after training rides, and secondly, just over there, is high carb versus low carb. What is the best for endurance cyclists? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. For that, all you've got to do is click on the globe.